And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, fuck him.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course, 5:05 on the Pacific Coast, coast to coast. We got a special guest with us, of course, the president of the Detectives Endowment Association to the NYPD. This is Scott Munro. Good morning, everybody. Scott, let's start off light before we segue into some issues, and of course, we want to talk about the Detectives Endowment Association Uber rideshare program, which we think is pretty awesome. Before we get into that, let's learn a little bit about Scott. Tell us about where you grew up. What your childhood was like growing up, and why you ultimately became a cop to the NYPD.
So I grew up in Long Island, Hauppauge, Long Island. I always wanted to be a police officer, and I was a volunteer fireman where I met many police officers. They used to rotate out of the firehouses. There was never like a roll call, and I watched what they did as a 16-year-old kid, and watched plenty of Hill Street Blues, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now today.
Scott, you a working detective, right? You've been a first grader since 2001.
Yeah.
How'd you get involved in the union? Like, I know you got a long career, but how'd you make that transition from when did you really say, I'm going to get involved in the union? At what point in your career were you like, I need to have my voice heard?
So in 2005, I was a fire commissioner out in Long Island. I was in there since 1998, actually, and some nice person dropped a dime and said I was a fire commissioner because you're not allowed to hold those positions under the New York City Charter. That there was a charter rule from many, many years ago because Rockaways had paid fire commissioners back in the day. And you couldn't hold that position. So it was basically something that I wanted to fight for. I was there since I was 16 years old. My grandfather started the Hauppauge Fire Department back in 1934. And it was something that I ran and I won, and I wanted to continue doing it. And they told me they were going to fire me. And if I didn't resign, I reached out to, a lot of different people that this happened to. Actually, early in like 1999, I spoke to a detective named Joe Vigiano, and we actually spoke about it and how he was told that he had to resign. That's what, when I fought this, becoming a delegate, and I got involved with the union because I thought, I'm going to fight for detectives' rights, not just my rights, for everybody's rights. And that's what I did. And we had the law changed, and we went up to the Senate and the Assembly with Marty Golden and Peter Body from the Assembly. And we had this. Governor Pataki signed the bill, and I put it in Joe Vigiano's name after, he was killed in the attacks on 9/11.
Well, right now, there's no doubt about it, right? We have a mass exodus in the police department, which ultimately hurts all the unions. So what's been one of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now with this mass exodus and in supporting the union?
It's keeping our membership on the job. It's keeping us, keeping the amount of detectives that we need in different different locations, different places, whether you're in ESU or you're in the squad or you're homicide or you're counterterrorism or JTTF. We have detectives everywhere that specialize, and you're losing all that specialty people that we're losing them every day. Right now, we're up to 325 detectives filed from January 1 to yesterday. So we're down 325. We had 5,525 before January. Now we're down 325, like I said, that filed, to retire.
And you guys and Scott, you guys are down, right? Like from 2001, I think you had about 7,200. Like what are your numbers at now?
7,200. I remember when I first ran for the board in 2008, I walked into counterterrorism, and when you walked into counterterrorism, that's all there was, detectives there, And now it's down drastically. So it was 7,200. We went to 5,525. Fighting for more grade, fighting for more detectives. you could make specialists, they make an average of maybe 15, 20 specialists maybe a month, but you're not getting the investigative detective. You're not getting the guy that's out there or the girl that's out there, getting in the squads, getting him into the investigative role. You're not getting those people, because if they're not bringing people on the job, they can't move those investigative people, into that role after the 18 months.
So how do you subsidize the union at this point with such a, I mean, the percentage wise, it's a big decrease from 2001, and now you just lost 325. How do you subsidize the union at this point to not raise their dues and still maintain, we just spoke about it offline, arguably the best dental care that you could get, have is Cigna. So how do you supplement, how do you subsidize, keep the union going? How do you manage to do it with less membership?
Well, we're very conservative with everything that we do here, So over the past administrations did very well with investments and stuff like that, and investments with the union. So that's why it's important. It's very important. You watch what you do your proper investments, and you're able to do these, to give the best medical, whether it's prescription, eyeglasses, or dental. That's important, and that's a big part of this job. A lot of people think it's like a name on the back of a card. It's not a name on the back of a card. There's a lot that goes on here. So, like I explained to some of the board members, you may not see me at every walkout or every something like that, because you know what? We're working hard every day to move this union forward, to make it even better than it is. And that's what we do. And that's what this board's doing. Like I said before, we spoke offline. I have a terrific board here. Everybody's working together. I have lots of committees, whether it's election committee, political action committee, entertainment committees. Everybody's involved with this union. Everybody's working collectively together.
Scott, we were talking a little bit about it. The tier 2A, how big of a problem when it comes to the calculation of pension do you believe that is, as it relates to the exodus and the retention of seasoned, experienced detectives?
I think that's huge. I think it's basically what's happening is, like I said, like for the people that don't understand, changing that tier, making that overtime, making 1,000 hours overtime, to sustain that every year is crazy. Like, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of time away from your family. Okay. And family's big, it's you got to be able to sustain that, and you're not going to be able to do that under 2A. We actually have 22,828 people, okay, that are 2A in this union out of the 5,500. That's crazy. So they're eligible to leave, in the next 3 years. We're going to have a mass exit here. So anybody that came on, under the 2A, we're going to have a mass exit here. So that's why we're up in Albany. We're trying to change some of these tiers. We're up and trying to get the city council. That's why I'm trying to speak to the city council, because we're going to need a home rule on this, and it's going to be hard. So we're working on the enhancement bill right now, which the people.
Oh, we just lost them. So what's happening and what he's talking about is tier 2A. Scott, he just came back. You could bring him back up, Jack. All right, we lost you for a second, Scott.
Okay.
We got you, Scott. We got you back.
Okay. So basically, that's what's going on. So we need to get that fixed. I need to get the enhancement bill done along with the lieutenants and sergeants. It's very important to us to keep our members here, and that's what we're looking to do. It's a lot of moving parts here up in Albany and at the city council to get this stuff done.
And Eric, just before you go, and just for those of you that are on here that aren't cops, what Scott's talking about is tier 2A is a tier that happened after tier 2, where it's your last year that calculates your pension. Now, Scott came on earlier than those in tier 2A, and he's in tier 2. So his pension numbers are based upon his best year or the best of his last or a combination of his best 3 years. So they're trying to get that so that if there is a high year earning years in the NYPD, like these last 3 years have been, particularly last year, people wouldn't be apt to retire being worried about their pension numbers dropping and actually harming themselves later in retirement. So that's why they're fighting for that. Sorry, Eric. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to explain that to the people who.
No, I'm glad you summed it up because Scott, we have a lot of viewers, a lot of friends, a lot of listeners that are cops, active, retired, not just NYPD throughout the country, but we also have a lot of people that are just police enthusiasts or families of cops. So it's great to understand that this is a major problem, right? The fire department was able to get this, but unfortunately, the cops just don't have any friends in Albany. I say it all the time. But here, look, you're driving in a car right now, so I think it's great. We segue. Let's talk about the Uber rideshare program for the Detectives Endowment Association. I'm a firm believer that this whole ideology behind unfit for duty is completely outdated. It's absolutely ridiculous. But if you could explain to us the Detectives Endowment Association Uber rideshare program, and if you're going to roll it out.
Okay, thank you. So basically, it wasn't just for somebody that was out, drinking or someone it's basically our detectives working long hours that may need a ride home. It's like we had so many accidents with our detectives on the Palisades Parkway, driving home, falling asleep at the wheel. And we had a detective get killed in early December, same way. And it was time that we did something, and listen, we're people, right? We all have hard times, and if we're out at somewhere and you feel that somebody maybe had something a little too much to drink, and you need to get them a ride home, you call our board officer that's on 24/7. They'll basically call the Uber. They'll take care of it for you, and they get you in the cab. So it's important that we take care of one another. Okay. So listen, they may have it. It may not be somebody with a drinking problem. Maybe someone's going through a divorce. Maybe someone's got a sick child. Maybe so. And you know what? You got one of those days. We all know it. It's all happened to all of us. And we need to take care of one another. And that's why we put this program into play. And listen, so people have questions. Oh, well, what if the guy uses it 4 times? Hey, listen, if the guy uses it 4 times, the guy may have a problem, or the girl may have a problem. I'm going to go to that person, or the board officer is going to go to that person and ask them, do they have a problem? Can we help you? And that's what it's all about. That's all what it's all about. It's not where me, Johnny, and Frankie are going to the Super Bowl party, and don't worry, we're going to call the union and we're going to get a ride home. That's not what it's about. It's all about having a rough day, a rough week. Everybody's got problems, especially guys and girls working, 1,000, hours a year in overtime, and they're not home for their kids' ball game or their daughter's dance recital. It's important that we take care of one another. And that's why I thought, and the board thought, okay, that we need to start doing stuff more for our membership, health reasons wise. Okay. And that just leads into the whole suicide program and everything that we've been doing here.
So it's not just so like the way the Post article came out was that it was solely about cops going out and drinking, and then they could call up. So you're saying that this is more like the big 4 accounting firms or larger accounting firms, when they're like, say their busy season, their accountants are working these long hours, and they'll give them rides home. Like you can't drive home. We don't want you commuting and falling asleep on the train. If someone's convalescing, they're sick, they could also access this program.
Right. Hey, listen, the bottom line is like you remember getting home, you know what I mean? Like getting home and you got to put the kid on the bus because your wife's working and you're trying to survive here to pay your mortgages and pay your bills. You know what I mean? Because that's why he didn't sleep over in Iraq. And he's like, I got to leave. I got to drive home. Well, we got to leave. Our detectives, they got to leave and they got to get home to put that kid on the bus, the child on the bus. There's different scenarios here. It wasn't just about alcohol.
Scott, I think you really laid that out beautifully. I just want to say, put some context behind it because we didn't have any context with it. So hearing your perspective and put some context behind it really solidifies that this program is going the right direction. John, I'll leave it to you. Sorry about that. I just want to.
No, yeah. So Scott, first, I just want to say I appreciate you totally. I respect you a lot more. Like when I researched you and I understood your story about why you got involved in the union. Like literally, you had a problem, and you're like, wow, I gotta fight for myself here. And then you reached out. So one of the big reasons I started speaking out was about the vaccine mandate that Bill de Blasio put in place. And now I know you were not the union president at the time of that mandate. There is a good friend of ours, a member of the Finance Unfiltered family, and Marlon Beal. He was a 16-year intelligence detective, a first-generation immigrant to this country. Really, in my opinion, terminated with, and I don't even believe in my opinion, I believe the facts lay it out. He was terminated without given due process. He never got a department trial. He never got charges. We've been advocating to city council, to the state assembly on numerous different types of legislation, as well as working with mayoral candidates to get on the issue of reinstating and compensating people and detectives like Marlon Beal. What is your stance on New York City's vaccine mandate? Do you believe the union acted properly at that time?
Okay, so at that time we had 8 detectives got died from COVID. Okay, so and they weren't giving us the shot in the beginning, and I know my predecessor fought to get the shot for our members. Do I believe that I think it should be, if you want it, you get it. If you don't want it, you should not have to get it. That's my opinion. Okay. I'm really not for it. I have 2 boys on the job. My one son had COVID very early stages in March, where they had him sitting there watching hospitalized prisoners with people with toe tags already dead in the hospital. In the 102, he was transferred to the 102 patrol. And basically sitting there in the hospital, our members, and then he ends up getting COVID not once, twice, 3, 4 times. He did not believe in the mandate. He almost left the job because of that. So I just feel that the shot should have been optional. That's my opinion. If you want it, you get it. Listen, I wasn't crazy about the shot. The shot got me sick, and I don't normally get sick. I get the flu shot. You know what I mean? I never get sick, and I was knocked out, and like I was concerned about, also, like I said, us losing, 8 detectives, and I remember Marlon, and I remember what went on with that. I don't agree with that. The shot should be optional. And then they came up with some price. I don't remember, it was $500 or something like that if you got the shot, and I didn't believe in that either. I'm like, some guys were going to get the shot then for $500. I'm like, that should have been something that we should have been working on with collective bargaining. Not something where they bailed. And the thing was, they got the check like a week later, which was crazy. You never get paid from the city that fast, So no, I do not believe in the shot. I think it should be optional. If you want it, you get it. That's my opinion.
Well, at this point, John and I were talking yesterday, and John says to me offline, Marlon's the only detective that was terminated without without seeking out some type of accommodation through OEEO. Now, Marlon didn't take the shot because he wanted to take an FDA-approved shot. So I said, you think Marlon's the only one? I said, I find it hard to believe Marlon's the only one that was terminated without cause and terminated for those reasons. But at this point, if that's the information that we have, if Marlon's the only one terminated at that point, I'm not sure of as far as the limitations and capabilities with the union. But would you be willing to work with Marlon? Would you be willing to represent him, put him back in the union? And would you be able to give him a job?
I think Marlon, he's dealing with our labor attorney, I believe. You know what I mean? We didn't turn our back on Marlon as far as I've been trying. I mean, I think he's dealing with the labor attorney. I'll look into that. I got no problem. Listen, I'll fight for anybody. Like, you know what I mean? That's our job. This is what we do. Whatever I can do for Marlon, I will do.
Would you be willing to give Marlon a job with the union?
I don't know if I can give him a job, but I can't make those decisions. I'll be telling you honestly, that's a board decision. I can speak to Marlon. Maybe I can help him out getting some type of job or or something, I have no problem helping Marlon out. But
I would definitely like to put you in touch with Marlon. He's an experienced investigator. He's super intelligent. He's part of the finest Unfiltered family. There's no doubt about it. He should be employed by the NYPD. I believe he should be the face of the union right now. What happened to him is absolutely ridiculous. But I'm just having the conversation. I would say communications breaks barriers. I think we're breaking barriers right here. And I appreciate that you're willing to have that conversation.
Of course. Listen, Marlon can call you anytime you want, and I'll meet with him, come down, whatever, and let's go over what we can do, how I can assist him in any type of way, what this union could assist him in any type of way, moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing here. Like we don't want to sit here and say, oh, Paul didn't do this and Paul didn't do that. But what we're saying is we're here. I mean, I think we could all agree at the time it was a terrible time. Decisions were made, and the city really didn't act properly. Again, we have cops that are accused and detectives that are accused of real serious crimes that are afforded due process, and Marlon wasn't. And so I appreciate you being willing to speak with Marlon, and we will 100% put you in contact. For the future, though, I'm going to go backwards a little bit. During that time, many of the members of the NYPD, including myself, weren't aware of the Article 78 process. And I personally believe that was something that I don't know if the unions could have afforded to represent us on all of those Article 78s, but potentially could have helped us draft Article 78s. If something like this in the future happens, where there is a even if it's just one person, or if there's mass people that feel that their religious accommodations aren't being properly adhered to, or medical accommodations, is that something that you would explore as a union? Do you feel that is part of the union obligation to represent a member as it relates to Article 78?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Listen, like I said, Marlon could come in. I'll bring the attorney in, the labor attorney in. I will do whatever I can do for Marlon. I have no problem doing that with that. I love taking on a fight. I have no problem taking the fight on. And anytime Marlon wants to come in, I'll sit down with him and we'll do what we can do for Marlon.
Yeah, and just the last thing, and we'll get off of that. We want to move on to 50A, but the last thing, and this is, I know for a fact, this is what happened, is that Marlon was offered to some arbitration. I think he's actually in here now. Yeah, he's saying they wanted to arbitrate more money for the union. He was working with the labor attorney. I don't know who it was, if it's the current one or not. And basically they wanted him to sign off on something that he would not be able to sue later on. And he wouldn't be able to, he was basically waiving his rights, but it had nothing to do with him getting his job back. So, in full transparency, I think, we appreciate you on here. We respect what you're doing, and we appreciate that you're willing to sit down with Marlon.
100%. I'll sit down with any one of our members, any past members, retired member. This is what a union is. And like I said, every time I put something out there, I'm not a big social media guy. I'm lucky I turned this phone on right now to do this. That's just me, man. You know what I mean? It's always about the membership. And that's what I believe in. It's always about the membership. And I say it all the time. And that's important to us and this board.
That's why, listen, I always say opposition meets opportunity and communication breaks barriers. We have to have communication to find out the context of everything, right? We found out the context of this Uber rideshare program. But the context behind Marlon also, I really do believe he should be the face of this. And I believe, he at this point, he should be a union member. If you could get behind him and fight for him right now, because Marlon's on an island on an island alone. He's on his own right now. We're supporting him, as a family now, but there's no doubt about it. He should still be an investigator. I mean, we see some of these kids getting promoted to detective right now. They haven't even wiped their nose in the police department yet. But we appreciate you willing to have that conversation. Let's move forward. Obviously, 50A is a touchy subject, very near and dear to me. I being coined the most complained cop. So at this point, what is the union stance, especially you being the president of the Detectives Endowment Association? What is your stance when it comes to the CCRB Do you attend any CCRB meetings? I mean, John and I attend these virtual meetings monthly. We've heard a lot of bias and stain on behalf of CCRB. Have you had any sit-downs with CCRB? What is the stance right now, and what communication have you had with CCRB as far as the 58?
So basically what I did was when I came back in, I had all the board officers rotating at CCRB, along with the two people that are paid that we utilize down at CCRB, okay? So I wanted them more involved because they're out there in the field on a day-to-day basis. They know what's going on out there, and they rotate daily at CCRB, okay? So every borough, every day there's a different borough at CCRB, okay? That's number one. We started to put that back into plan. We did it years ago, and it kind of got, with COVID and everything, kind of got pushed off to the side. So now our members are back at CCRB. The other thing, what we're doing, I'm going to be very aggressive with this. I'm not going to get into today how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Okay, so I'm giving you my word. 50A, I'm not happy with this individual that's running this 50A is putting misinformation out there. I'm looking to possibly legally go after him with this 50A, with the misinformation that they're putting out there. We have plenty of people that have stuff written up on 50A that is not true. And maybe if we start hitting them legally, start hitting them civilly, maybe we can get this stuff fixed. We've sent numerous emails stating, the attorneys stating that the information on there is not true, and that we would like to get it fixed. Okay, I'm going to be very aggressive with it. The next couple weeks, I'm going to be sitting down with certain people that are very educated on 50A, and then we're gonna figure out a plan that how we're gonna attack them. Okay, 50A itself. So that's what's going on. There's also a bill up in Albany right now where I'm gonna talk to the assembly person that I just met him the other day. His name's not coming back to me right now. And then I'm gonna meet up with him, and we're gonna decide on how we can move forward to straighten out this 50A, because it's costing our members jobs. Some of our people are leaving this job, and they're looking at that 50A, and a lot of it's not true. So, like I said, that's what we're going to do with 50A, the DEA, along with I spoke to the other unions too about it, and also as CCRB is concerned, I'm going to be very aggressive with CCRB. We win most of our case, majority of our 95% of our cases, we win. Okay, so what a waste of taxpayers' money and time with these people they have investigating at the CCRB, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. So that's going to be the new flavor. It's going to be CCRB and 50A.
Yeah. So when it relates to the 50A, I think that like all you guys, especially the PBA, because I think you guys are the most affected, SBA, LBA, DEA, PBA, where the misinformation that you're talking about is that there's, you got Eric who's substantiated on things he actually wasn't substantiated on later on, and like never received job discipline on. And, I think it's fair for like the state legislators to sit there. They just passed clean slate. And I think there's a bill up currently that if you have a case that's not substantiated, that after a certain amount of time, it'll be removed off your record. But I don't believe that goes far enough. I think cops are entitled to a clean slate at some point. Why does Eric's 50A? I mean, it's at this point, Eric and every member of the NYPD's 50A is on for eternity. It goes on in his retirement. It'll go on 100 years from now, past his death. There's absolutely no reason we're sealing criminal records. These are administrative white sock things. This is insane.
All right, so it shouldn't be there. And you know what? I know what you're saying with up in Albany. I think they're looking to try to start gradually go into this to get this bill done and move forward with it. What you're saying, be moved off their record and stuff like that. So that's where I was speaking to that individual last week when I was up there. So, like I said, we're going to take this on head on. I hopefully in a couple of weeks, I'll be back on. I got some more answers for you with this, what we're going to be moving forward to doing. I'm
Awesome.
I'm really thinking about hiring investigators to investigate the people in CCRB and investigate this guy, this individual that's doing this 50A, because it's time that we start fighting back, and I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, well, you had a member recently, and I'm not going to put his name out there, but you had a member recently, and I believe he just retired. I'm not sure. He did get his case overturned. He got his CCRB case overturned. I believe he was he was a detective. He was a detective, and he got his case overturned. And honestly, I think that's the blueprint going forward for any member of the NYPD who is who's facing a CCRB and who's facing a substantiation that feels that they were wrongfully convicted on or substantiated on. So I think that guy who laid that blueprint out, I think it's something that the unions should hone in on and use that actually as the blueprint.
Well, that guy, I know who it is, and I've been speaking to him, and it's great actually. So, and we're going to be meeting. You're right, he just retired. I wanted to get past this suicide awareness thing last week, and I want to go full blown into 50A and CCRB. That's my goal for 2025. Okay, so I'm excited to do it. I'm sure I'm going to be learning stuff every day, new stuff every day. I would love to suit him, and maybe Eric wants to join a lawsuit. So I have no problem. I want to go after them. I'm tired of them going after our members. Tired of our members going to trial and winning at trial and wasting time and more stress and more aggravation for our members. It's time that we start fighting back. And I'm like I said, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be sitting down with some attorneys, some investigators, outside investigators, and moving forward on trying to do something with this.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Listen, I appreciate that you want to fight. And you say you want to get aggressive. I just want to know, what does that look like, getting aggressive with the CCRB? Because I can tell you right now, it feels like we're on an island alone. John and I linked up together. His fight obviously has been COVID, but he's been a super supportive, helping me out fighting the CCRB. We attend a monthly meeting virtually with the CCRB. We've heard a lot of bias and disdain, and see how it's on bookends, right? The cops are getting hit from CCRB, and then the other end is 50A. Now, I can tell you this, and that's why I always say, so I'm going to be a 75 or 80-year-old man as the most complained cop. These are administrative infractions that should be eradicated. At some point, I do believe substantiated complaints should come off your record also. Should be a 3 to 5 year window. Doesn't give you a chance to evolve. So what does that look like, getting aggressive to fight CCRB and 50A? And of course, if there's a lawsuit involved, absolutely, I want to get on that because it's my opinion that in my fight with the unions, especially with the LBA we lost them.
Sorry, I got you.
With the LBA representing me, there was a lot of, well, we're working on it. We don't know what to do. We need to get aggressive. We need to get a foot in front of it. It's comprised of investigators that reverse engineer these investigations. We heard it ourselves at testimony to city council. So what does that aggressive fight look like at this point?
I'd like to say I have some ideas. I just really don't want to put them out there right now because I have to make sure that legally we could do the ideas I have. So if that tells you anything, it's going to be I'm giving you my word. In the next couple of weeks, when I find out that I can do what I want to do here, you guys will be the first ones to know about it.
All right, awesome. Scott, can you go? Thank you, Scott. Could you tell us a little bit about the suicide awareness and what you guys have been doing? I mean, it's something that's been plaguing, I think, all the ranks, particularly detectives, a lot because the amount of hours and pressure that's on you guys and the caseloads you guys are dealing with, as well as trying to manage their own personal lives. Could you tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing with that?
So we came forward. We had 2 suicides last year, detectives, and then I think there was a police officer that it was crazy. I think he committed suicide. And about 5 a year. So
we lost him.
We're lost. We get it back. But let's sum it up in the meantime, right? I think. Listen,
he's back. He's back.
Yeah. I mean, we're working on it.
There you go.
We're trying to give different layers. If members feel that they're uncomfortable with the
I think you hit your mute, Scott.
He thought he was hitting the turn signal. Hit the mute button. Scott, we got you. That's all right. In the meantime, listen, I think it's great we're having communication. Communication breaks barriers. I'm sure there's people that agree, disagree. But the bottom line is we have to have conversations. That's the key to success. Conversation after conversation, and let things come to the surface so we can start peeling back the layers and figuring out where to go from here. The bottom line when it comes to CCRB 58, cops are sandwiched in between. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, when we talk about the mandate, we need to do more for Marlon. Marlon needs to be the face of this. There's no doubt about it. He needs to be appointed.
Right.
Here we go. Scott.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it.
So basically,
Scott,
what,
can you just lower the background?
what's that?
Like turn your volume down.
Yeah. Just so we get rid of the reverb.
Is that all right?
Yeah, you good.
I think that sounds better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
So with the suicide awareness, we're trying to give different layers that we could do, different things we could do, offer more from what the job has. We have a tele thing where you can actually get on and anonymously speak to somebody, which we've been using. It's been working very well. It's just different things, and it all comes into one, and no one really knows the answer, you know what I mean? But the bottom line is, if we could stop one suicide and basically get out there some of the stuff this department offers, because for financial reasons, for any reasons whatsoever, health reasons that they need to speak to somebody, I think it's important, and that's what I've been doing, that's what the board's been doing. Like, I'm even educating myself even more with this. I learned stuff that I didn't know on the financial end, where they have people that come in and actually help you financially and tell you if you have a problem, financially, basically, that they can help you out, different ways they can help you out. So I think it's important. I'm going to have them come in and speak at my meetings, like each section of wellness, and educate the delegate members. I think it's important that, let them come in for 15, 20 minutes and explain to our members at each meeting, different things that the
All right, we keep losing him. Listen, I'm getting reports of a cop shot right now. I'm trying.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting called.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take this call, guys. I gotta go.
Yeah, go. All right,
Scott, thank you for coming on. Be safe.
Yeah, I'm getting reports of a cop shot right now during a hostage situation. So we don't know the details on that. But yeah, I think it was important to have Scott on. I respect Scott for coming on. First union president to have come on. Yeah, 384 in Madison. They're saying during a hostage situation. If any of you guys get the details, please send that to us so that we could read it out. But I think, listen, we could all sit here and poke on the past, and we could beat up everybody about everything that happened. We're all human. We've made mistakes. Clearly, the city made a lot of mistakes. We've said it. We've called it out in the past. We believe the unions were in bed with all of it. But the fact is, today's a new day. It's time to move forward, and let's start to move forward together. And so I gotta give a big shout out to Scott Munro for coming on. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best case scenario. Next time we'll have him set up in his office, not while he's driving. So we apologize for that. I wasn't aware. I figured he would be at the office. So we apologize for that. But I think overall, you got to give Scott props. He comes on. He's willing to talk to the membership. And we'll get him back on. We'll have him back on. And anybody, I think, listen, the fact that he's said he's willing to work with Marlon, we're going to hold his feet to the fire. That's it. You willing to work with him? No problem. You willing to do things? I mean, I think he cleared up that not the DWI, but the app for drunk drivers. And I think it is a positive thing, and it sounds good,
Well, for me, honestly, I'm not concerned that he was in his car driving. It just shows that he's got a busy day, and he found time that he thought it was important enough to have this conversation with us, right? There's different ways to look at it. Some people could say, hey, you know what? Could you stop for an hour, take the time any day? Or some people say, hey, the guy's so busy and he managed to get on the podcast. Either way, that's not what's important to me. I always, when I train jujitsu, when I go to different places, I always say, I have the best time at the places that have horrible bathrooms, that they're not really fixed up, because it's the people. It's about the people. So same thing with the podcast. I don't really care what they look like, what position they're in. I care about the context of it. And the context of this is that we had a conversation. And I always say, let's not build walls. Let's open doors. Let's open doors. Let's have conversations. And this is just an opening conversation. He said he's willing to speak to Marlon. And exactly, John and I are going to hold him accountable. We'll speak to him constantly. Say, hey, you said you're going to speak to Marlon. Let's have those conversations. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to put their feet to the fire when it comes to 50A and CCRB. I'll definitely be in touch with them. That's near and dear. And that's why I said, what does that fight look like with CCRB and 50A? I heard the same thing from Lou Turco. We're going to have an aggressive stance. What does that look like when it comes to fighting CCRB? Because in my case, it appears they just laid down. They were supposed to compile information to determine if there was any discrimination against white male lieutenants. They were actually starting to take that information down, and I never heard anything back. So I don't know where that went. So the bottom line is we had a conversation. Let's see where this goes. So let's talk about this cop right now. This is terrible. What do we got so far?
Yeah, so prayers for this cop. So 384 Madison Street in Manhattan, confirmed officer shot during a barricaded situation, transporting to hospital, not likely, in not likely condition. And not likely means that injuries are not life-threatening at this time. So let's hope that's true. We have no information on the perpetrator at the time. As we get it, we will bring it to you, but that's all we got right now. So prayers to all involved, all the officers and cops on the scene. We're not sure about anything that transpired, but it sounds like a pretty hostile scene that happened in Manhattan early this morning during literally an upheaval of New York City government. Eric, we've been getting reports all day, all night. My phone hasn't stopped. What are you seeing? What's going on? I mean, the shout out to you guys for still, the cops and the firemen and the EMS workers and the hospital workers who are keeping the city running, because obviously our elected officials are having a hard time doing it themselves. So shout out to the common people, the people that are working. Eric, what are you seeing in New York City government right now?
Well, I see a New York City government right now. First of all, it's just so lopsided at this point, and it's so egregious that it's almost like watching a novella. At this point, to me, it's so dramatic at this point. So, what's going on with Kathy Hochul? What's going on with Tish James? What's going on with Trump in New York City? What's going on with Eric Adams? It's like watching novella at this point. It's just complete drama. And here we have more deputy mayors that have stepped down. To me, it's an indication that Eric Adams, his days are numbered. There's every reason to believe right now. And I've said it for the longest time. I was the one who said that Eric Adams would not step down and he would make it to 2025. I was right about that, but I see the doors are starting to close. I see the walls are caving in. I think Eric Adams' days are numbered. The fact that these deputy mayors just stepped down, to me, is another indication that Eric Adams is going to step down. But what's quite impressive to me, I have to say, the rank and file, shout out to them. They go out there and they're doing their job while this corruption probe is going on, while New York City government, along with the state government, has completely turned on its face. And the cops, I'm impressed by it. So I speak to cops constantly, right? And what they tell me is, I'm getting pressured right now by O'Hare, who's running inspections about their socks, their uniforms. This guy's going out giving CDs right now. You got a corruption probe going on right now. You have an excessive amount of overtime. You have numerous police officers, and up to the rank of lieutenant, have an egregious amount of overtime because they're involved in corruption, sex scandals, and pay for play up at one police plaza. And this is the pressure that's coming down on you from cops, sergeants, and lieutenants. And it's impressive. And it's almost as if, and John, I don't know if you think the same thing. I speak to some of these cops. It's almost as if they're operating as if there's no corruption probe. I said, I figured that the job would just be running on autopilot. I can't believe you guys are getting so much pressure, yet they're not looking at one police plaza, just completely deflected everything. I just want to stop right there and segue in. A lot of guys are providing information about what's going on with this cop. Mike Smith says, guy let 3 rounds off and held his girlfriend hostage in the bathroom. Apparently, it's in PSA 4 in the confines of 7 precinct. I was the anti-crime sergeant there for 6 years. so I know the area very well. PSA 4 is an interesting place, right? It's we used to joke around. We used to call it housing light. So compared to other housing locations like PSA 7, PSA 4 doesn't have the violence, but it's an interesting place, very dynamical. A lot of narcotics, but when you do have an instance there, it gets crazy. 2 of my police officers were shot there. I don't know if you remember several years ago. It was back in 2011. One of my cops was actually shot in his gun belt in the 7th precinct in PSA 4. We had another cop shot in a stairwell. So it's an interesting place. So please shout out to the cop, and God bless him. My prayers.
Yeah, so what we got up on the screen right now is this is actually the 911 call. So authority of a PSA 4 sergeant via confirmed shots fired at MOS, approximately 3 shots. Unknown if any shots were fired by MOS at this time. All MOS accounted for at this time. But it goes on further. If you could go to the next photo that I sent you, it goes on further to show that actually a surgeon was notified and a cop was removed to the hospital and not likely at this time. So obviously when 911 calls come in, it's hectic. Sometimes people are stepping over each other on the radio. The 911 call operator is putting it in as he or she gets the information. Sometimes it's incorrect. And if you see, it goes on further to state here, authority of housing executive officer, MOS is not likely, meaning they're not likely to die. Housing lieutenants going to the hospitals, authority of the PSA 4 patrol supervisor. I believe the bus was 84 at the hospital at Bellevue, but a surgeon was notified. So we're not sure what's what's transpiring there. But again, our thoughts and prayers are with
John,
you all.
I just spoke to Scott. He said the detective was shot. It was a detective shot in the arm. So Scott's on the way to the hospital there. So he'll be able to keep us updated what's going on. So hopefully, sounds like he's going to be okay. But absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely
Terrible.
That's why my message also to the cops out there. I used to joke around, right? I used to work in precincts, and John, I'm sure you saw this. And you would see cops go to other precincts, and they would have collar brass from another precinct inside their cuff case. Like, for instance, if they worked in the 7-5 and then they went to the 120 or they went somewhere, and I'd say, why do you do that? Why do you put that collar brass in? And I'd say, what is that, for street credit? And to me, that's why it doesn't matter where you work. I don't care if you work in the 123, the 111, the 100, or the 44. You always got to be, things happen, right? Things happen. And it doesn't matter. You're still in New York City. It's very transient. Things get volatile in a second. So shout out to any cop in New York City. It's not where you work. It's what you do when you work there. I've had plenty of cops work with me in the South Bronx. They'd walk around. Those guys would tell war stories, and they would tell them vicariously through my stories because they never did anything. I'd say, you don't work in the South Bronx. You just drive around the South Bronx. So please, to the cops out there, be safe. God willing, he's going to be okay. Please be careful. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Yeah, and and we're not like brushing off a shot in the arm. I mean, this is a traumatic, life-changing, potentially deadly situation. Someone fired 3 shots, detective hit in the arm. While we have the Detective Endowment Association president on here, obviously his members come first. So I mean, this is how fast things happen in New York City. This is how fast they happen in the New York City Police Department. Cold sunny morning in New York. Like Eric said, it's not, it's housing light. It's not a tough precinct. You guys didn't work in a tough precinct. It's like, yeah, you ever chase somebody with a firearm before? That doesn't make me feel better knowing that I'm not in a tough precinct or I am in a tough precinct. So, and you see how things happen. So yeah, we'll keep you updated, but we'll 100% after we get off this show and while we're on here, our thoughts and prayers will be with that officer, his family, and all the officers that were on the scene, as well as the hostage. And this is how violent this city is. But at this time, we need leadership. At this time, we need leadership in this city. We need leadership in this department. John Shell had put out a real cryptic tweet recently that it seems like he's resigning. Seems like he's gonna step down. What do you, first of all, before we get into Shell and we get into that tweet, Jack, if you could just get that ready. If you go on my Twitter, it should be there. But before we get that ready, what do you like? We were just talking about Eric Adams, right? I mean, I was saying that Eric Adams should have resigned way back in October. That there was no way he could effectively manage the city prior to his indictment. Then he gets indicted. All of his top mayors resign. He has a whole complete shift. All of the Democrats are completely fine with it. Then he gets the DOJ to drop charges while hanging the charges over his head currently. And still till today, they're not officially dropped. But he loses 4 more deputy mayors. So this is we're up to like 12 or 13 people in his top tier administrative staff that have rolled over and left and had their homes raided or not raided, depending on who you listen to, and getting their cell phones taken. So now that he said that he's going to use his executive authority to actually allow New York City to cooperate with federal immigration law and ICE, now city council, state assembly, the governor's convening a meeting right now because he said he's going to cooperate with federal immigration law. This is the problem. The corruption wasn't the problem. The incompetence wasn't the problem. The indictment wasn't a problem. Nothing was a problem until he said that I'm going to work with the Trump administration. Now they're asking for his head, and it looks by all means that the governor is going to remove him. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, John, you just don't understand. These deputy mayors, they all have to step down because they have to spend time with family. And see, in the Adams administration, they work so hard that they eventually need time off with family. That's what's going on here. So, it's interesting to me, right? So Kathy Hochul has the power here to make the power move when it comes to removing Eric Adams. We've been in the face of adversity for an entire year at this point, more than that. But an entire year, we've been under the face of adversity with a massive corruption probe. A massive corruption probe that's been so blatant that the indictment itself, the allegations meet the preponderance of evidence. If we had a civil case at this point, we would say he's guilty by the preponderance of evidence. We just need a reasonable doubt because these are criminal charges. There's no doubt in my mind Kathy Hochul should have pulled that plug a long time ago. But it took politics. It took this point. It took people that are emotionally involved. Kathy Hochul herself. It took politics at this point. It took this Trump derangement syndrome, the fact that they hate Trump so much, to actually get to the point that they're actually put their foot to the fire. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's completely irresponsible. It's reckless. But this is what we're beholden to. That's why, I've learned so much in the past years, especially doing the podcast and seeing my career turn on its own face, that it's really important who you vote for. I mean, the days of saying, well, it is what it is, or you know what, my vote doesn't count. No, your vote doesn't count. That one measly vote, that makes a big difference because what happens on local level politics can change the course of your life, the quality of life. It can determine if you want to live in New York or not. This is absolutely insane. It's so egregious. I can't believe what we're seeing here right now. And it's amazing how this is completely turned on its head. And at this point, to me, it's almost like Eric Adams has become a martyr in this. That's what we've never seen so much support for a politician that actually has the preponderance of evidence of corruption, and not just himself. It's not isolated just to Eric Adams. His unscrupulous behavior has spread to his entire administration because these are his appointments, including the sheriff's office that can't account for money seized, warrantless searches, and a police department that's just completely deteriorating while the police officers are out there doing the job on autopilot. To me, it's just completely insane.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. I see a lot in the comments, and I've been getting a lot over the past, 6 months of this debacle that's just New York City has became, the NYPD has became, that always better than Jumaane Williams. So let's just clear something up. Nobody's advocating for Jumaane Williams. Jumaane Williams gets in, there's a special election, you vote for mayor. The problem is what people say is when, and someone on here said it, he said, when Adams is the best of the worst, that's pretty bad. And that's kind of what's happening, and that's what we're seeing. The bench isn't deep. The bench in politics in New York City isn't deep. The bench in the NYPD isn't deep. And someone's asking if Kaz Daughtry is ripe for vesting. I think I don't know. It depends who the next mayor is going to be. He may not be more than likely, I would say, depending on who the mayor is, he would not be a deputy commissioner again. But like, let's just short term right now. Chauncey Parker, deputy mayor of public safety, has just announced his resignation. I believe Kaz Daughtry is going to slip over there. I don't think the bench is deep, and I don't think they have much room to go further. Kaz Daughtry, do you think Kaz Daughtry is the next deputy mayor of public safety if Adams lasts a few more days?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Hands down. I absolutely think this is another power play by Eric Adams. There's no doubt about it. Eric Adams spoke on Corey Puglisi's podcast. He spoke numerous times about Kaz Daughtry, how highly he speaks of him. He put him on parallel with Jack Maple. There's no doubt in my mind that Kaz Daughtry is going to slide into that spot. I don't see it any other way, because when Eric Adams steps down, and he will, Kaz Daughtry has a lot to think about, and he's done with this administration. So there's no doubt about it. He'll slide into that spot. I don't see it any other way.
Absolutely. So over the weekend, it's crazy. Like, things get quiet with us for a while, and then out of nowhere, we just start getting bombarded with, we did the episode where we said we weren't happy, and I think we were all in agreement. Me, Eric, Sal, Marlon, we all were not happy with the Trump administration decision to drop the charges, to get involved. Well, to somewhat drop the charges, but linger them over Adams' head. We gave that push, and then next thing we know, we woke up and we were leftists overnight. And then we had, a handle by the name of Viral News New York City. We prefer to call him Bootlicker News New York City. Start to say that we're working with the far left and we're anti-police, like just these ridiculous things. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, why is this happening now? And then almost immediately upon that, John Shell is announcing he's going to have an official national PCast or national podcast, and it's going to be sponsored by Nunya, saying none of your business. And this is the tweet that comes out as we're getting attacked by Viral News and painted out as that we're working with the left and far left advocate. Kid's absolutely insane, but he is a propagandist, the kid. And next thing we know, on the heels of this going on, John Shell comes out with this. Silence is golden. At times, the national PCast is coming, and it's going to be epic. Sponsored by Nunya. We need a name, though. Need recommendations. Talk soon. So, I offered to license, on behalf of the New York's Finest Retired Unfiltered podcast, we offered to license the propaganda patch. The Republic of New York, we offered to license that to him. We'll work with him and Dr. Nunya, because we do believe that Dr. Phil and possibly Blue Line Magazine, possibly Newsmax may be in his national podcast. The two suggestions I offered were Crumbs and Street Dogs, the podcast, or Failing Forward. Those were my two suggestions. Eric, what were your thoughts on that? If anybody has any suggestions, please put them out for the what seems to be now the chief of department who's retiring.
So first of all, his tweets from this triple fat neck loser, they sound like from a 12-year-old girl, like Nunya, PCast, like he's totally unhinged. Think about it. This is the chief of department for the most iconic, biggest police department in the world. He writes his tweets like a 12-year-old girl. So I wrote here, we do provide consulting for podcasts upon request. I said we prefer direct inquiries. However, thanks to our police experience, we can read between the lines. With that being said, I will extend my courtesy as you are seeking logos and names. I suggest you unveil your encrypted messages. These hashtags would be perfect. Hashtag EDW and hashtag BMS. These hashtags actually John Shell put out. EDW means Eric Dimwit. He got them from Cop Watch. And he put BMS, which is building maintenance section. And so sure, John Shell, he can't help himself. He responds, he says, there were more than 2 hashtags. Go back and resend. Anyway, consultation not necessary, but thank you. Got a big future offer in this thing. It's interesting. So he admits that he puts encrypted hashtags about us. It's hilarious. What a triple fat neck loser. Oh my God. I seriously writes like a 12-year-old girl. Nunya? I got to show it to my daughters. Like, do you write like this?
So wait, I got to read a couple of these. The Gobbler's Corner, the Pigeon Parade, the Triple Chin podcast. Shell on social media drunk.
Yeah, we need some recommendations here. Come on.
The Charlie on the Parkway podcast. Listen, we're trying to get some Charlie videos. I think we're gonna actually get. I think what we need to do is just bring Charlie on the podcast, and then we get something. What do you think about that? I think we bring Charlie on the podcast.
I would love to have him on. He can explain to us the traffic solutions.
Charlie, you're invited, big guy. We're getting you on. So the Clogged Artery podcast. So there's a ton of them, dude. There's like, not only in here, but throughout the time that we said, let's help them with the name. I fully support it. I think it needs to be propped up and backed by millions of dollars and backed by national media in order to get the views. It's like it would be the equivalent of as if we bought views. I'm already the number one fan. I'm just going to say that right now because I'm going to be on it, all over it. I'm going to be listening to it. I'm going to be dissecting it because I think it's important that obviously they see social media and podcasting as a very powerful tool, and us speaking the truth has somehow invigorated them enough to actually do what we're doing, but we believe it's going to be a propaganda message. So I think the patch that Marlon created is actually that, and they should license it. So Dr. Phil, if you're listening, we'll gladly license to you. We'll even do it at a discount for you because we like you. I like ball guys. So right on the heels of that, the next day, John Shell puts out a cryptic LinkedIn message. In about 12 days, I embark on my 32nd year of service to New York City. From a rookie cop in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, to the chief of department, what a ride. I've experienced every single emotion in situations that one in law enforcement can ever experience. Loved every moment and tried the best I could. Made plenty of mistakes, but the heart was always filled with good intent. However, day to day, it just becomes harder and harder to answer the call. To the men and women of the NYPD, so proud of you all. Keep fighting the good fight. Never relent, for you are truly the guardians of Gotham. Let's see what tomorrow presents. But in the meantime, the show goes on. It waits for no one. 24/7, 365. We all understand what we signed up for while understanding that one day the music ends. Strength and honor to all you. So this coming on the heels of no one is going to 233 Broadway. No one. Absolutely no one.
They're going to 500 Pearl Street. That's why.
They got out of that. They got out with the Trump DOJ. So shout out to you guys.
Well, it's still there. It's without prejudice. Drone Ranger put for the name of the podcast, accidental discharge. That's one. That's one thing he left
Winner.
out. Right?
Winner. Ding, 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 ding. Drone Ranger won.
You got it. That's gonna be the name. He left out in his story about how he took someone's life in 2008. That he left out in his encrypted message. Shout out to John Shell. Where do you think they came up with that idea? I'm trying to think. Where do you think they came up with the idea of motivating them to do a podcast? John, any idea where it came up?
The finance on Unfiltered, baby.
I guess John Shell.
Just real quick, just on this. This was a detective was a member of ESU. They were executing a search warrant. It was the A team. A team is the team that actually goes through the door when you're executing a search warrant. Those
are great guys.
Round hit the bunker and one hit his arm. So as they were going in, they were taking on fire as they got in, and one got hit. So prayers for all members of ESU, and crazy times, crazy
That's
stuff.
why. What the building? That's why I tell people don't sleep. We used to kid around and call PSA 4 housing light because compared to other housing locations, it's not as violent. But when stuff happens, it's legit. It has an old history. The Lower East Side of just it could blow up at any time. It's a very interesting place. You could be on 6th Street and Avenue D and have a drug dealer, some yuppie going to work, a crackhead, all in the same corner. It was a very interesting place. Great to work. You really learn how to be a good crime guy there, because to find guns, you get them, but you have to work. You have to know what you're doing.
Crazy morning, people. And it just goes to show you this is the nature of New York City. I got another suggestion. How about afternoons with Mrs. Daughtry? We also have driving Miss Daughtry at the podcast. You know, I can keep going. Yeah, like just keep sending. If you got names, we're gonna provide the list to the chief upon his retirement. So we're gonna provide the list of names that and if anyone has the logo, please. I personally believe propaganda department is perfectly. I said, what did I say? It should be boosted in propaganda, boosted in props or something.
How many beers do you think it takes to tweet?
Two. You start to feel it. So, but seriously, what do you think about that? So this comes on the heels prior to the announcement of everyone that is a Democrat in New York City calling for Eric Adams to resign. So he obviously lost his entire base. I don't even believe he's electable at this point. I made a claim that I thought he would be the Republican nominee. I don't even think he's a viable option anymore. I don't think he's going to be the Republican nominee. I think Eric Adams' political career is by far over. Whether he's removed or he's not, I don't see a path to victory for him in New York City as the mayor. What do you think is on the heels of John Schell announcing this? Do you think he had a heads up? Like, what are you thinking about that?
There's no doubt about it. He had a heads up. There's no doubt about it that he's headed for retirement. He's going to be a hired head. I'm hearing some echo and reverb. Where's that coming from?
I think you're just losing it, bro.
I don't know.
Nah, you got a little. Yeah.
But there's no doubt about it. He's headed for retirement. I think he's going to be paid opposition for the finest Unfiltered and try to control the narrative. There's no doubt about it. He's going to continue to try to control the narrative. I got to figure out what
Yeah, figure that out. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it's all too. It was just weird, the timing of it. The little propagandist starts trying to paint us out as far left advocates, working with the far left, and that we're anti-police, which literally all of the far left people were laughing at him. Like, they were like, these two guys? Yeah, really? Okay. The hell are we then, And then
what's going on?
So he was playing, and I'm like, that's weird. And then Shell announces the podcast, his national PCast, and then he, it seems like he was drunk tweeting again. And he's basically announcing that he's done. And then on the heels of 4 deputy mayors resigning, absolute turmoil, and possibly a fifth, the minister of propaganda, as I like to call him, little Fabian Levy. I think he's also resigning out of the administration.
He's done.
And people are saying that they're resigning in protest. I'm not sure that that's true. I'm not sure that they're resigning in protest or if they're just not trying to get ahead of what they know is eventually coming.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Eric Adams is done. He's done. If this is a point where he just has to save himself. But what does it say for all the corruption cases that's going on as we speak? What does it say for this case of Ed Caban, brother, within the police department? There's a lot of questions going on.
Yeah. You are echoing, dude. I don't know what's up with you.
Let me
Eric got a new mic again, even though I told him not to. And sure enough, he doesn't know how to deal with his mic. We need someone. We need a production crew with Eric because he touches his mic. I know he does.
You know what? I'm
gonna go through a few of the super chats. Tom, shout out to you, brother. You said didn't the DEA offer the thing during tyranny? Yes, they did. Scott had said that he did. You know what I mean? So that was one. Then he says they will praise the not likely cop. This is the same people who will praise and demonize if that cop made too much honest money. 100%. That is the state of politics. Cops are used as pawns. And, I'm very critical. Eric's very critical of the unions. And because we believe that as we're used as pawns, as cops are being used as pawns, we give away our support way too easily and allow ourselves to be used as checker pieces. And so that's one of the reasons we feel that politics is such a vital portion of law enforcement. And the only way to really hold on to your strength is to hold on to your strength and not give away your name. Obviously, you're controlled by the politics of it. So, and that's 100% what's happening. You're seeing right now all of these mayoral candidates, the mayoral candidates who said they wanted to defund the police, who said they were going to take away overtime, they were going to take away SRG, they were going to take away all of these units that are vital in the NYPD. They wanted to restrict NYPD officers' ability to properly provide public safety in New York City. They decriminalized a ton of laws, and they really put criminals ahead of victims and ahead of the police. Those same politicians are now saying, I'm going to hire more cops. I'm going to fund the police. And so 100% that, and this is what we see every time a cop is shot or a cop is, God forbid, killed. We see the same, them flip-flop. Oh, our thoughts and our prayers are with them. It's really? So how come you weren't with them yesterday? How come you weren't with them when somebody started to attack them with a knife and the officer was left with no other option but to use deadly physical force? How come you weren't with them then? And last comment from Tom. Eric, do Adams a solid and volunteer for his administration. Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Eric Dim, full endorsement here.
I'd have to leave to spend time with my family.
Listen, crazier things happen. You never know. You may see Eric Dim as the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety one day. You never know.
I can tell you right now, I would change the face of training immediately. Training, leadership, and no doubt about it, CCRB and 58. That's why I say, what's that fight look like when it comes to CCRB and 58? I don't know what's going on. I went out of the chat, came back in here. I think it sounds better now.
No, you're good. You're good. You don't have to.
But there's no doubt about it. That's why I say, we say we're getting aggressive with CCRB and 58. And I appreciate that Scott's willing to have those conversations. But what does that look like? I mean, I thought Lou Turco had the right idea. Let's compile data because we want evidence. Let's show evidence that male white lieutenants are being discriminated against in CCRB. That there's overall discrimination in different forms. But there's no doubt about it that male white lieutenants, when you're working in an area that's predominantly black or brown, that you're going to be discriminated against by the CCRB. And they compile that information, and we don't know where that information is, Lou Turco. What happened to that? Did the results come out true? Is that why you didn't put it forward? We haven't heard anything. It just went to bed. So, let's not start things and then not finish it. What does that fight look like? We need a real fight. Let's start exposing that these cases are reverse engineered. That's why they exceed the statute of limitations when it comes to CCRB. The reason that they exceed the statute of limitations is because they drag on these cases. And what happens is when the CCRB cannot make a determination and find any guilt on an officer by going through the patrol guide or the admin guide and finding a violation, those cases are constantly dragged through the mud to find something, and that's why they exceed the statute of limitations. That's why, because these cases are not investigated till an outcome. It's completely reverse engineered. And John and I witnessed it ourselves at these virtual monthly meetings. And we watched the CCRB testify to city council. That's everything in their power based on the complainant's information. There's no totality of circumstances. Nothing on the part of the officer involved is taken into account, completely on the direction and the emotions involved of the civilian complainant.
Yeah, and then so Eric Adams is saying, I mean, he was talking. I don't know if any of you guys seen Eric Adams talking gibberish last night. He was, he said that Martin Luther King was talking about Mein Kampf, and I don't remember Martin Luther King ever talking about Mein Kampf, but he said that he was, and he said that in that he talked about how if you just keep repeating things over and over again, people believe it. And, it's something, and again, it's funny, the Democrats, they always accuse others of what you are guilty of. So crime is down, perception versus reality. That's exactly what he was doing, what his administration's been doing. They've been repeating lies often over and over again, but it wasn't Adolf Hitler that wrote that in Mein Kampf. It was his minister of propaganda that did that. His minister of propaganda was Joseph Goebbels, who Fabian Lieby honestly reminds me of, because again, we pointed out how he weaponized all of the New York City agencies to repeat that same narrative when they were trying to get illegal immigrants to work in New York City. Yes, the NYPD retweeted, the mayor's office retweeted, every New York City agency, DCAS, Board of Education, Fire Department, anything you could think of, Sanitation Department. We actually filed a complaint against that and stopped. Filed a complaint with DOI and they stopped it because it's illegal. It's engineering. But again, on the heels of the indictment, now Eric Adams is again using his weight as mayor to campaign among city agencies. Email went out to a few agencies, notably the fire department, where he's campaigning and saying all the great things his administration does. Another thing that's illegal. Marlon, I sent you an invite. We know we're a little all over the place today. If you could jump on, we just want to get your thoughts about what Scott had to say. Today's been a little bit of a hectic morning and a little crazy, but we got about an hour 15 in. We'll probably go another 40 minutes. But just curious, your thoughts, if you're willing to come on. I sent you the invite. How you felt about the Scott portion of it, particularly the portion as it related to you. I hope we did a good job. If you're able to join us, please come on. If not, totally understand.
Yeah, I'd love to have Marlon come on with his thoughts. And I'm going to speak to Scott even further. I think starting to build a report together. I want to speak to Scott. I think that really I really do believe that Marlon should be the face of this, honestly. They should really get behind him. And, it's interesting. We spoke about it yesterday, right? I said, wow, you think Marlon's the only one? So, and you made a good point. You said, well, if there was someone else, you would think that they would come forward. So at this point, I want to say to active retired members, if you know someone else out there, just so we can confirm, if there's another detective that was terminated without cause when it came to the vaccine, let us know. Someone we'd like to help, coordinate, have someone to team up with Marlon. Absolutely, Marlon needs some support in this. I think he should still be a member of the union. There's no doubt about it. He should still be a member of the union, and I think the union should find a place for him to work. He's got his skills that he had while he's on the job has been so vast and so valuable for the Finest Unfiltered family. It could be so valuable for the union. It should not come to this. I know a lot of people spoke when we were doing the nepotism episode. We talked about contracts, people getting promoted within 18 months. A lot of people on our chat, friends and listeners, will say, well, the job had to do it. I don't think the job has to do anything. I mean, when I say the job, I mean people, the upper echelon. The upper echelon moves at the beat of their own drum. They don't follow any policy or any law, only when it's convenient. So, Marlon, if you're with us, jump on. We want to hear your side, brother.
There's a story out there, and the job didn't have to do anything. I agree with you 100%. So there's a story circulating out there, and I'm pretty sure that it's true and it's accurate. I'm not going to put the person's name out there because I don't want to put anybody on the hot seat, but if you're ever willing to come on and discuss it, we'd appreciate it. So this person was in the same situation as Marlon, and he basically received both rejections, his first one and then his appeal. And he said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving. I came to work the next day, and the CO and the ICO never went through with the process that they were supposed to go to. And then the mandate got dropped about a week later. That person's still on the job and never got terminated or anything because the CO and the integrity control officer did not want to put their name on it. So yeah, the police commissioner did not have to abide by that order. And shout out to and I'll tell you right now, shout out to the commanding officer, shout out to the integrity control officer. You guys are legends, in my opinion. People should know that story because it's people should and to the guy who really said, no, I'm just gonna keep coming to work. Shout out to you because but people need to know that story. People need to understand what happened. But yeah, I could sit here, I could beat up Scott all day long. I'm going to give Scott props right now for coming on the show. 100%. We'll get him back on. We'll talk about it further. We'll let you guys know what happened to that. I know I saw a lot of people in here earlier on saying, oh, it's a ground ball layup. Listen, you guys have been with us for a while now. We've been doing this for 2 years. We're not beating people up on interviews. We're going to ask them the questions. Their answers are going to determine their answers. And that's it. We're not in the business of getting someone in the corner and just throwing punches. Makes no sense. It doesn't. We're trying to open doors, like Eric says. We're not trying to burn bridges. We've burnt enough bridges. I think they lit our way enough to where now we could start to mend and repair them. And I think that's what we need to do going forward. Going forward, there needs to be a process to restore. There needs to be a process to restore what has been lost and restore the good name of New York City and the NYPD. And I think if we're working together, we could do that. If we're all divided, we're 100% not.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I just don't understand the ideology of trying to win an argument. What do you get out of it? I mean, if anything, I think you start to bully people and you put them into a corner, it's just like an animal. You know, they're going to have to fight their way out and protect themselves. He's going to go on the defensive. And I say communication breaks barriers. Let's have a conversation. Let's not try to win an argument. Let's see where his head is. I mean, he brought up a lot of great points. I'm sure when we think about when we talk about the Uber rideshare program, there's a lot of points he brought up that we really didn't even know. We never even thought of, right? We think of it as something to get cops home that are drinking. And he talks about the other facets to it. He brought a lot of context to it. And I think that's what this is about. And the same thing when it comes to the mandate. Let's give him an opportunity to say, hey, babe, let's give him a chance. We have this conversation to think about it. He's driving. His mind's all over the place. Let's give him a chance to think about it. And we're going to have more conversations. And I believe that's how we build, by opening those doors. But when you put people in the corner and bully them and say, oh, see, you're wrong, I got you. How are you winning? Because you're just going to shut off all communication and you're not going to build anything. All you're doing is, right? You're just cornering somebody. For what? Just because you could? I mean, you want to be a bully like John Shell? I mean, I hear about all the horror stories in the police department, how he bullies these commanders. That's not going to create critical thinkers. They're not going to come up with good ideas. They're just going to go into defense mode and hopefully just hope you go away.
Yeah, we got a couple more suggestions for you on your way out the door. The Token Cracker, a podcast lending insight into selling your integrity for 5 stars. For 4 stars, excuse me. Hysterical. That comes by way of Drone Ranger. Joe Mango says, I got another good name. Perception management or controlling the narrative. Yeah, I think too great. I love all the suggestions. I think they're hysterical. Pat Donahue, longtime DEA board member. Another guy we're going to definitely have on the podcast. We'd love to hear his background and story. He says, curious timing appearance by Scott today. Show has been talking about Marlon and DA for a long time. Wonder what the impetus was to the appearance. Listen, I think I think what you're seeing is that people recognize this as what it is. It's a media platform. It's a gateway to speak directly to your membership, to speak directly with your membership. The concerns they have, we don't have the same concerns as Rosanna Scotto would have, or some other type of media critic or media talking head or journalist. We have a little different lens. We were in the game. Again, you're a wide receiver in the NFL. Somebody's asking you about what you're going to do out there in the game. It's totally different when, you're speaking to another wide receiver. Totally different dynamic. And that's what the Finest Unfiltered has brought to not only New York City, but to the nation. And I think, you're going to see a lot more notable people come on here. And you're going to see a lot more people who traditionally would never make their way to media. We have a lot of people that serve 20, 25-year careers, 30 years on patrol, and they're going to be on this podcast as well. And you're going to hear their voices, their experience, and what they have to say and think about things, because I think ultimately we're the voices that matter more than the notable union presidents, more than the big media personalities. The people that matter are us, the people that make the wheel spin. It's you. You're the voice that people want to hear, and that's what we're changing. It's not just changing the police world; it's changing media on its face. And so, I applaud Scott. I think that he's thinking ahead and he's seeing it. I'd like to welcome up to the stage our brother Marlon Beal. Marlon, what's up, bro?
Hi, good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, brother.
Yeah. Marlon, you always have that little boy sitting next to you. There he is.
Yeah, guys. That interview. I wish Scott had sat down in an office so we could actually hear him properly. But
yeah. We'll get him back on.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about? So I had asked him as far as representing to you, as your representation, and possibly giving you a job, and he said that you had the attorney representing you. What are your thoughts on what's going on with that? Is the attorney actually in contact with you?
Oh, and Mom, before you even answer that, I just want to let you know he could fully hire you in the union. And he said, I couldn't do that. I have to speak to my board. That's not 100%.
Yeah, that's not.
And I'm not even saying that that's what you're looking to do, but I just want to put that out.
Yeah, that's not true. I haven't spoken to the lawyer in like over a year now. That the last time when I spoke to the lawyer, they were trying to push me to sign the waiver to begin the process to return to the job. But the problem is the process to return, if you were terminated, means you have to sign a waiver, and the stipulations of that waiver are very draconian, including the fact that the job has the right to still reject you from coming on even after you signed a waiver. Now, the problem is that I'm already a kind of like a public figure now. And I'm sure the job doesn't like the fact that I've spoken out against a lot of these things. So once I saw the waiver and the stipulations that they could still reject me even after I signed the waiver. Now keep in mind, signing the waiver means you're giving up rights to litigate, rights to back pay, rights to return of your time. They weren't even sure at that time if you were going to return to your old unit. So if I'm giving up all of this and the job can still tell me no, they don't want me back, then I was like, wow, why am I signing this? Why am I signing this? But at that time now, I was in communication with the lawyer, and I told him, what about the waiver? And according to him, the union was never contacted about the waiver. Now, keep in mind, I've since sent in a FOIA request to find out exactly when the union had communication with the department, but that has never been returned yet. But the point is that I haven't been in contact with the lawyer, and the last time I spoke to the lawyer, they were trying to push me once again to signing another waiver. This is besides the one a year prior they were trying to sign. They were trying to force me to sign so they could arbitrate the vaccine for more money instead of actually fighting the mandate itself.
So basically what Marlon's saying here is that, and for those of you that don't know, he was asked to sign away his civil service rights. He was asked to sign a waiver also stating his right to back pay. So he was going to waive that. And he was going to waive the right under the pretense that he's not guaranteed to actually get his job back. And 100%, as being a member of the Finest Unfiltered, you were not getting your job back. That was never in the cards. So what the union was pushing at the time, and not just the DEA, all of the unions were pushing at the time, is just sign the waiver and come back. But that's not what it is. You're literally signing away. I have no right to any legal claims in the future. And please take me back and get on my knees. And I'll sign away all of my rights to you. And I may not possibly get on the job. Now, I personally don't see how any labor union could think this is a good deal. This is a cooperative dialogue. This is something that might benefit the member, especially someone who did absolutely nothing wrong, when they fought for so many people who actually did things during that time that really destroyed their careers and destroyed their integrity, like handing in fake cards and that. So, I mean, that's another issue. And again, I could sit here and beat up everybody. Lou Turco, the kid in Monahan and the CEA. All of them. We could beat up all of them. Hendry, all of them. But I think it's time now that they get on board and they start to do some of the advocating that we've done behind the scenes with the politicians on both sides of the aisle. I mean, if we could do it, why can't you? So I think we need to push that further and that conversation further with the unions, because reinstate and compensate, it's in my opinion, it needs to happen. It needs to happen very, very, very soon.
Yeah, I mean, Marlon, the bottom line is
absolutely, John. Absolutely.
Where was your due process? How do you feel about that not getting due process?
Well, the thing is, like we've said, this is a bigger issue. It's not just about the mandate. It's not. It's about our community, our continuing diminishing rights as cops on the job. I mean, I didn't have due process, but look at the situation that all of us were forced in. I mean, it's
We lost him. All right. Well, while he's
Scott,
getting
I got him.
his stall link back together. We lost you. Your stall link went. Sorry. What were we saying? This is between you and Marlon, bro. I don't know. Sal's the only good one. Sal's the only
entertaining. Sal's got like a whole production team.
So Drone Ranger says you get more bees with honey, but the line of questioning was weak. I understand about building relationships and showing adversaries that you can fare benefits, but it was T-ball. Marlon, what are your thoughts? And please be perfectly honest with us. Drone Ranger says that it was a T-ball interview, that we didn't ask the questions. The questioning was weak. Was there anything we missed that you would like to see? And same question to you, Drone Ranger. What questions would you have liked to seen? Like, what was the line of questioning you would like to see? And Marlon, particularly when it relates to you and your issue, were there any questions that we missed that you would like answered?
Well, yeah. I think the entire setup of the interview, like I said, Scott should have pulled over and had the interview. He should have been at his office and had the interview. And in fact, I thought it was a little disrespectful that he couldn't give us the time to have a proper interview, because I mean he's willing to go and sit down with WABC, and the thing is nobody's watching that. Nobody's listening to that. The only people who are listening to that are geriatrics.
When we shared it,
not on the job.
We shared it on our social media. Then they got some views.
Good point. You're right. You're right.
There's plenty. The vast majority of the job right now is young. They're young people. They're millennials. They're Gen Z. Okay, you should come on this podcast, sit down, and have an honest conversation in a proper environment. You know, because the people who are watching this right now are the people who it affects the most. So I think the entire setup for him doing that interview while driving was improper, and because of that setup, there will never be a proper interview because there are distractions. You could hear the road outside as he was driving. The entire setup we were never going to have a proper interview with that setup.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But yes, there are tons of questions that needed to be asked.
Yeah, Marlon, I think you brought up a great point, because I had said earlier, I said I kind of looked at it as like, oh, the guy's got such a busy day and he took the time out to come on the podcast. But the way you said it, when you say it that way, I appreciate it. It gives me a different perspective. You're right. Because he should have made the allotment, say, well, let me take this hour, because going on this podcast shows them advocating for my men and women, because he knows the men and women are listening to this. And to have that time to really focus on it, I agree with you. You know what? The cop getting shot is unexpected. I can understand he would have to run for that. But you're right. When you say it that way, he could have taken the time so we could actually have the proper environment to, it was distracting for us also. I don't listen. I get what you're saying, Drone Ranger. I don't think they will, lay up questions. But now I can understand why a lot of guys don't get women. I mean, do you just go right for the kill? I mean, you got to warm people up. You got to warm them up to it. You take a woman out to dinner, right? You warm her up to it. You don't just go in for the kill. I mean, it's the same thing when you have an interview with somebody. I don't feel you just go right into it. Have a nice conversation. You warm them up. Same thing when I used to debrief my prisoners. I never went and debriefed the prisoner and went, hey, do you know anything that's going on? I used to go in there like, hey, buddy, what's up?
Everything you know.
I'd hand him a newspaper, like, here's a paper. Get him something to eat. I'd walk away for 20 minutes. I'd come back. I'd read the Miranda. I'd put him in the cell. I'd come back in an hour. And then I would talk about basketball to the point that they were dying to ask me questions. So, like Michael Fried says, good foreplay. You need foreplay. You don't just take a woman out and say, hey, let me try to get it. You got to warm people up to it. So, I listen, Drone Ranger, I understand. I appreciate perspective, but I don't think they were ground ball questions.
Yeah. No,
what are we going to ask?
I think they were relevant on topic questions. And there was a few other things I wanted to get to. Obviously, the retiree healthcare was another one. Congestion pricing. What are the union doing? These are union issues. These are what these unions are facing. So I personally thought the line of question was good. I agree with all of you. I didn't like that he was in the car at all. I thought it was disrespectful, but at the same time, busy person, that's how you felt it was. Whatever. Next time you want to come on, we want it to be in a different format. Same thing when we had Cop Watch on, right? We had a ton of issues with that. We said, if you're going to come on, it's got to be in a different format. Can't be in your car. But these are things we'll work on. And whether, I don't know that he did it as a sign of disrespect, or if it was just, hey, I'll do it. This is the time I'm driving in. I'll do it at that time. Tom Clemenza says, I get the people who refused the jab and were terminated. They have a gripe. But what about us who did get it? What are we entitled to? I think, honestly, there is a conversation for that, but I think there's a conversation after Marlon Bethel is reinstated and compensated. And, and unfortunately, like, there were people that were injured that are being ignored. And I think they're going to come before people who weren't injured. And honestly, a lot of you guys that weren't injured and you took something, you did sign off. You got a $500, or you got a free cheeseburger, or you got to go on that trip that you wanted to, or you got to eat in that restaurant that you wanted to, and we didn't. And I'm not trying to knock anybody. Like, Eric, I'm really not. I'm being dead honest. Like, when we look at it, like, you were offered something and you took it. I know plenty of people who were laughing in my face while I'm like looking where I'm going to live and how I'm going to support my family. And they're like, oh, look, I got an extra $750 or $500 in my check. And then everybody was fighting for that. The unions were more concerned about that. And you heard Scott even talk about it. We made sure that we got the $500. Like, okay, that's what you wanted, So, but again, I think what happened to you guys, what happened to all of us, is wrong. But we have to go by who was injured the worst, right? And by who was injured the worst, unfortunately, Marlon, you are the example of that. A 16-year detective, zero disciplinary history, not one single charge against you. You were terminated. You lost your good name. You lost your status in the police department, your status in society, your salary, your health care, your dental. So obviously, when we look at injuries, when we look at injured parties, Marlon, is got an assault one, and maybe you, Tom, you got a harassment charge. You know what I mean? Like, you got harassed. And then we have to look at that. And I'm not trying to be funny about it. I'm trying to put it into reality for everyone. This is what happened, and everybody had a cause of action. But when you look at it, Marlon, he lost everything. For what? And it's horrible. And from a city that we claim that we care about everyone and we respect everyone and we want to build people up. And obviously, that's not exactly what they want to do. They want to destroy anyone who doesn't bend the knee. So shout out to Marlon Bethel for not bending the knee.
John, there's a study, and I forgot what the term is called, but when people are broke, that when they buy, it's called I think short-term consumption or something like that. When people buy things when they're broke to feel better, that it actually makes them feel worse. And I kind of think something like this with the mandate, to take $500 to take a shot, yeah, in the short term sounds good at making $500, but I think in the end it would make most people feel worse. Like, wow, I kind of was bought, like that short-term consumption. What did I get out of it? They got more out of it than you did. That $500, you probably forgot what you even spent it on. I think it's completely insulting. I think your perspective, Marlon, on this interview is great. I think that I'm going to contact Scott and say, hey, listen, let's take an hour where really we have an environment that we could really have a great conversation, speak more on this. And I think because we didn't beat him up, he would be open to having those conversations. I don't see any win. If we would have beat him up, obviously he's not going to come back. So, John, I just think that it's better that we have those conversations. I think that Marlon's right. And I think that maybe the next one we'll have Marlon come on with Scott.
Yeah. Pat Donahue actually said, I think that would be good to actually see the dialogue, right? And I honestly, I don't know Scott from a hole in the wall, but I think he'd be willing to it. He seems pretty upfront. Listen, is he a union guy? All their issues, he's going to be scratching his head over and be like, yeah, because that's just the state of what New York City is today. It's in chaos. But if we take the issues head on, the craziness that we're dealing with, I think we could solve them. Marlon's Starlink went on again. But S.E. Gittin says the Buffer Zone podcast for another thing for Chelsea. I think that could actually be a good format. I think that could be a good format. Pat Donahue says it as well. He thinks that. Listen, I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen with this platform, especially in the next coming weeks, and I think eventually, this is the style we're going to move to. Even pension seminars, things of that. We're going to change a lot of the stuff that's been happening, and we're going to revamp and make things new and more user friendly and more give the individual users voices. And I think, again, like I was saying earlier, with bringing on the people that traditionally you don't see on TV, that is the draw, right? And that's also the draw is when not only do you empower them to give their thoughts, but you actually allow them to have town hall styles, like the way this podcast traditionally is most of the week. This is a town hall, right? It's just me and you as talking heads, and everyone's weighing in. Sometimes they're against us, sometimes they're with us, sometimes we're all in alignment. But that's reality. That's life. Marlon, we keep losing you. Starlink's doing bad. But before you go, I just want to ask you: you have any podcast recommendation names for John Shaw?
Yeah.
This shouldn't be too tough.
How about Dumpster Fire?
Citywide for a John Shell podcast.
You think Kaz Daughtry will eventually become a co-host?
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I like driving. I like driving Miss Daughtry. I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I do like.
I like the accidental discharge.
Accidental discharge. Yeah, accidental discharge. That one today. Accidental discharge. I agree.
So obviously DOI is not going to hold John Shell accountable and Kaz Daughtry for their unprofessional, reckless actions on social media, having pissing matches with journalists and trying to shut down this podcast. Obviously, he's not going to be held accountable. Again, another member of the upper echelon, just free for all, do whatever they want with this police department, not held accountable at all. What would happen to John, myself, or Marlon? Or Sal, if we violate the social media policy for the NYPD, what would happen to us? Right? We would be in a world of hurt. World of hurt. This is ridiculous. You know what it should be called? Triple fat neck loser. That's what it should be called. Triple fat neck loser.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us this morning. We had Scott Munro, Detective Endowment Association president on. We went over a bunch of issues, and then unfortunately there was a detective shot in the line of duty while executing a search warrant for the ESU's A team. So he had to run. But we're just weighing in on the issues surrounding New York City. We're going to go for a little while longer. There's about 900 people on here. If you could just do us a favor, like, share, subscribe. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll try to get to all your thoughts and questions. We're also at this time asking for recommendations for John Shell's podcast that he announced, a national that's going to be sponsored by Nunya. What he means is None Your Business. But we have a lot of reason to believe that Dr. Phil will be involved in it, and particularly some Blue Line magazine that, I don't, and so we'll see what comes out of it. But I think the names have been hysterical this morning. Do you think that now that John Shell's retired, do you think he would actually come on the podcast, on the Finest Unfiltered?
No, I don't. I think, see, I was going to say something about Scott coming on. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to speak to the membership on grounds that they kind of understand, because like I said, the people watching this are young guys who are on the job still. And unfortunately, I think John Shell would have the same attitude, whereas in that he would rather go on WABC rather than come here. And a lot of that is also because you're going to get friendlier questions on WABC than you are here. Over here, you're more than likely to get pushback on a question or a follow-up on a question. And tough questions is something that a lot of these guys have spent careers avoiding, Nope, like I've said in the past, and we all know, nobody ever tells a chief no. Nobody, very rarely does somebody ever question a chief, Okay, and I think I think certainly in the immediately after leaving the job, I think John Chell will still have that viewpoint. You know, it's gonna take some while before he realizes he's no longer a chief. You know, so no, I don't think he's gonna come on. Even though, like I said, it's an opportunity to speak to young people who most of the job is made up of at this point.
That's funny you say that, Marlon, because Resnick never figured it out, right? He became a deputy commissioner with the NYPD and still wanted to be called chief. Some people, they just can't let it go. It must be good to be a chief. I tell you, make me a chief for a day. I just want to know what it feels like, because these guys can't lose it. I mean, it must be nice when you're like, hey, snap me a cup of coffee. I know Juanita Holmes couldn't handle it. She got a job working at American Express for $400,000 a year. They were probably like, chief, you have to do some work yourself. You can't just snap your fingers and ask for it. So she came back to the NYPD.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what happens.
So Marlon, Governor Kathy Hochul put out like a scathing message yesterday, basically saying that she's going to convene all the top leaders in the Democratic Party to look at a process of possibly removing Eric Adams. What are your thoughts around that? I mean, we've been talking about that for a while. I've been saying for a while this administration is in complete turmoil, even prior to his indictment, that he should actually have that power should have been excised prior to his indictment, when we saw all of the deputy commissioners and the deputy mayors resigning basically in disgrace and in under corruption probe. And all of that was looked over. The corruption was looked over. The indictment was looked over. The chaos at City Hall was looked over. And now that he has basically moved over to the Trump team and basically went from this is going to be a sanctuary city to I'm going to fully cooperate whatever you tell me, Big Daddy Trump. So now that he's done that, now the Democrats are saying, oh, well, we just had 4 deputy mayors, so we're going to remove them. What are your thoughts around everything that's happening right now in New York?
Well, I think if she's removing him, she's begrudgingly doing so, because I don't think she wants to remove him. I mean, look at all the allegations and all the scandals that have come out of the city so far, and she's not taken any steps to do that yet. But she wants to do it now that Trump is aligned with Eric Adams. I think she begrudgingly, if she's going to remove him, she's begrudgingly doing so because, and I hate sounding like a broken record, but I think Eric Adams is a great scapegoat for all the problems of the city. And if you remove him, I mean, if you remove him, first of all, that person there is, I believe they're there for a limited time. But I mean, we already know they're there for a limited time because the election is coming up. But I think if you remove him, a lot of the blame and a lot of the focus might shift to her in terms of handling the issues. And a lot of the issues are ingrained systematic corruption, in a wider corruption that engulfs the entire city that needs to be taken care of. And I don't think that she's ready to do that, because a lot of that corruption centers around the Democrat Party, and a lot of the Democrat Party policies, and a lot of the NGOs and community organizations and the sycophants that circle the Democrat Party. Okay, a lot of those problems are connected to them, and I don't think any one of them want to uncover those stones.
Yeah, I mean, Marlon, I think you make up some great points. I think we had a great sit down and roundtable last Friday. I think we hit a lot of the key points then. What I'd like to see at this point, I would like to see, because the city council, right at this point, is asking for Mayor Eric Adams to step down. I would like to see that power play come from city council. It's never been done before, which doesn't mean it can't be done. I like to see them take action and impeach him. In order for the city council to take out Eric Adams, they would have to impeach him. After that impeachment, they then go to the appellate court. After the appellate court, they then need 2/3 of the city council to say he should step down. It's a rare thing to do. It's never happened. But this is also the first indicted mayor. This is the first indicted mayor to have charges dismissed. Why not? Let's use that power play. John, what do you think about that power play as far as the city council? Or do you think it should come from Kathy Hochul? Or does it matter?
I don't think, like I said, I think it should have happened months ago, and the fact that it didn't happen months ago is the reason I agree with Marlon. Is they're so heavily entrenched in the corruption, and they're literally eating each other at this point. It's kind of crazy to see. I just think, I think New York City is in just like the NYPD. The NYPD is a microcosm. The management of the NYPD is a microcosm of the problems that plague New York City. And I think it's in a crisis of leadership. There is not competent authority running New York State, New York City. And honestly, the people that are put in place, for years, I've been saying public safety has become a grift. People that are in charge in the New York City Police Department are not there for the benefit of New York City residents or even the benefit of the cops, which they claim to be. They're there to enrich their own pockets, enrich their own families. And the same is true when you move over to the elected officials. Those people are not there and do not see themselves as public servants. They see themselves as celebrities and as people and as leaders, and they've been anything but that. And so it's pretty crazy to watch. I think the city's in turmoil. I think that, the bench really isn't deep when we look at who potentially could take over New York City should Eric Adams be removed. I'll be honest, I don't know the fear that people have about Jumaane Williams. He's a far left activist radical, the same as Eric Adams was, who New York City elected. And he will only be there temporarily while a special election happens. So that's not my concern. My concern is who's going to be the mayor, who's going to win that election. That's my concern when I look at it. When I look at the line of candidates, and I am a long time in opposition to Andrew Cuomo, and yet when I look at the field of candidates, I'm like, oh my God, he looks like the most sane one. And I'm not knocking Jim Walden. I think Jim Walden's there too. But when I'm talking about people that have been on the political stage, Jim Walden is a newcomer to New York City. I like Jim Walden the most out of everybody. But I'm saying like the big names that people know, the Curtis Sliwa, the Eric Adams, the Jumaane Williams, the Brad Lander. These are people that have been on the political scene in New York City. And when I look at those big names, those big fundraisers, I'm like, oh my God, if Cuomo throws his name in the ring and it appears he's going to, I think it's almost a lock at that point.
Yeah. I think we got a great comment here. I think Eddie West is right. Well, there's some other things, but city council only started speaking against Adams when he was cooperating with Trump. City council should be removed as well. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of issues with city council. City council dropped the ball when it comes to this administration. City council really could have pushed the envelope a lot forward, right? They should have pushed the envelope on professionalism by the upper echelon of the police department. They should have pushed the envelope a lot further when it came to Sheriff Miranda, his testimony. They should have pushed a lot further the testimony by Tiny Kinsella as far as overtime being so egregious and excessive and unaccounted for within the police department. So city council dropped the ball. Shout out to you, Eddie West. I'll get you a cigar on that one, brother.
Yeah, so Judge Dale Ho, he is the judge presiding over the Eric Adams corruption case. So Sal Greco just sent me a letter from Judge Ho. And what that is saying that he's requesting a conference with all of the parties. So he's requesting a conference with the DOJ. Again, we've seen the head of the Manhattan Southern District resign in protest to dropping the charges on Eric Adams. She is a longtime Republican conservative attorney who clerked for the conservative Justice Anton Scalia. She was appointed by the Trump administration to head the Manhattan's Southern District office. She's anything from a far left deep state advocate, but yet she's being painted out to that because she has issues with why she doesn't feel legally, not only legally because of the criminality that's been uncovered, but also on the part of Eric Adams, protecting Eric Adams' rights, because it's not right to hang something over someone's head for political gain. And Emile Beauvais' letter basically said that's exactly what they're doing. So she had multiple arguments there, very nuanced arguments, and they're painting her out to be far left. And the same is true for the actual person who was in charge of the investigation, who is a 2 times Bronze Star medal recipient, who served 3 combat tours in Iraq, who is a lifelong conservative as well. Again, he's trying to be painted out. He resigned in protest. He said, "Oh, it's never going to be me. You might get somebody with less courage, or you might get someone that doesn't know better, but it's not going to be me." And in his letter, he even stated how he understands where Donald Trump's coming from, because he's a businessman and he understands that leverage should be utilized, and it looks like it's a good thing. But he said from attorneys that know better, especially that are in charge of the Justice Department, that's shocking to him. And so I hate to see the narrative. Oh, well, Eric Adams going to save. We got a country to save, and Eric Adams is going to save it with us. And I'm like, I don't think so. So I still going to say this. I think that this was a bad move on the part of Trump's DOJ. And I think it was a real low integrity move on their part as well. What do you think about that? I mean, as much as I could say, and I'm getting messages right now, it could be worse. Be careful what you wish for. Yeah, I get it. But we're watching a criminal enterprise control New York City. Is this the state that we're at? We're like, no, please keep the corrupt sheriff, keep the corrupt police commissioners, keep a corrupt police department, keep our politicians lining their pockets. Is this what we're settling for?
Yeah. It's the wrong way to look at it. It's the wrong way. Like you see a lot of commenters online are they're saying, "Oh, Jumaane he'll be even worse than Eric Adams. Oh, why would we put a far leftist there to replace Eric Adams?" But that's the wrong way to look at it. Because Eric Adams is systematically corrupt. Okay, Adams is even worse in a lot of ways than the far left, because the far left actually has principles. They tell you who they are and then they act on it. Eric Adams, you don't know who he is. Yesterday he was left, today he's right. Eric Adams is about Eric Adams and about benefiting Eric Adams. He has no principles, like I said, we don't know who he is. So that's the wrong way to look at it. Okay. The way I look at it is like, it's like quicksand, right? I would rather be knee deep in quicksand than be waist deep in quicksand. We're going to be waist deep if this administration is there for another 4 years. Okay. As opposed to, even if we get Jumaane in there and he's corrupt himself, he's going to be out of there quick. I would rather get it over with quickly so we can move on to better candidate, okay? Rather than to have 4 more years of Eric Adams, and by the time that 4 years is done, New York City will be an even greater mess, and we'll be waist deep in that systematic corruption. And by then, it's going to be hard to get out. And if you think it won't be hard to get out, just look at places like Baltimore or Detroit, okay? Those places, Detroit and Baltimore, have for decades been trying to get out of that quicksand, and it's hard. And they will never be what they were in the 50s and in the 60s, okay? Do you want New York City to become like that? No, you don't. We need to get this over with quickly.
Spot on. You're absolutely hit the nail on the head. There's no doubt about it that sometimes, and I'm a firm believer, sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. John and I spoke about this offline, and we said, whoever becomes the next mayor of New York City, if they report and they document crime appropriately, that crime will actually go up, because now we'll be reporting crimes and there will be an accurate information. So the first year, there would actually be a significant increase in crime because it would be the true numbers. And then we could actually see from there what would be the capabilities of the city on that point. So things do have to get worse before they get better sometimes. You know what? At the same token, we're in this position. We should also hold the political parties accountable and say, hey, if we're getting to this point that we'd actually have a threshold for corruption, maybe you should find a better candidate to put up in the line that runs for mayor. We should hold these people accountable. Well, with that being said, Marlon, I think you're spot on. I mean, you always give a great perspective, and you always look at things, the bigger picture. So here we are. We're about 2 hours into it. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your input. I'm always open to criticism. I appreciate some people like the line of questioning when it came to Scott Munro. Some people think there were softballs. But you know what? Keep an open mind. I think it does open the conversation, and we can continue to have further conversations about this issue and break barriers. And we'd love to have Marlon on and have that conversation as well. So here we are, close to 2 hours. You have upcoming today, of course, at 12:05, you have Sal Greco show. And then this coming Wednesday, check out again our executive perspective, Rob Lukash and Ron Layson. They'll be back again at 5:05 p.m. at 17:05 for your military buffs. So please stay tuned. Let's go around. Let's get some final thoughts. John, what do you got?
Yeah, and just on another note, check out the Sal Greco show. He recently had Frank Morano on. Frank Morano was a radio host, longtime radio host, WABC 770, other side of midnight, and he had him on. He's now Frank's running for Joe Borelli's city council seat in a special election. Pretty interesting interview. I actually enjoyed it a lot, and I've went back and forth with Frank a lot on different issues, but I think when I listened to him, I heard a lot of common sense. So definitely check that interview out. That's in the videos portion of the YouTube channel. I think Sal did a great job with that. And I really did. I got to know Frank a little better and where he's coming from, and I kind of liked what he had to say. I thought he was definitely interesting. That was one. Another thing, there's been a photo circulating out online of a cop, and he's down in transit and he's wearing Jordans. And now apparently every roll call, they're doing uniform inspections. I mean, uniform inspections should be done at every roll call. There are times when cops mess up. They're human. I don't know the story, what happened, why the guy was wearing Jordans, but apparently they let him turn out that way. Fortunately, dumb things happen. Bad decisions are made sometimes. Someone snapped a picture, and whether they meant it to go viral or not, it went viral. I know we all got it dozens of times. We refrain from sharing it because it's stupid. It's dumb. Like, people make mistakes. If it's an everyday occurrence, that's something that needs to be addressed. But I was like, why am I going to put this out there for the public consumption? This is, and I think you guys do it a lot. And some stuff needs to be addressed. But that's like, it depends what it is. So there's a poster in one of the precincts now, and it's going around, and it's a captain who's about 4'6", and the captain's doing open ranks, and she's inspecting officers, and that's what captains should do. That's what should happen at roll calls. I always inspected the troops, should inspect the troops. So how many times have we done a roll call and people didn't have their firearm in their holster? You missing something? You got something? You're good to go? You're going to go out like that today? This is the point where we're protecting each other. We're protecting each other from ourselves. We're protecting each other from the stresses, from the things. And someone had put this letter that's also circulating. Are you wondering why the white shirts are performing inspections at roll call? One, they should. So I'm not wondering why. That should be a part of what supervisors do. Maybe you saw the viral photo of a transit cop in sneakers. Well, you can thank your very own PBA delegate, who I'm going to refrain from naming, for taking that photo and distributing it throughout the entire city. Again, things go viral that this person might not have thought was going to go viral. You send it to one person who sends it to one retired guy who has a far reach on social media, and that photo is going to go viral. I think it's a learning lesson here. So I'm not going to sit there and point out that delegate. It was dumb to do, but am I going to sit here and say I never took photos and sent it to my friends? Of course I did. Social media wasn't a thing and podcasts weren't a thing, right? So it says, make sure you're on point before leaving the locker room, because inspections and executives will be checking your uniform every day thanks to him. Aren't delegates supposed to protect you? So one, it's not thanks to him. Maybe the more scrutiny is thanks to him, but this is what should be going on. So police yourselves, help each other, and really start to just take care of yourselves.
Yeah. So what's on my mind? So I'm listening again to the fourth turning, right? I know I've recommended it to you, chat, for you guys to read it. It's homework. Please read it. Okay. Now I had it on audiobook, and yesterday I decided, you know what, I need to order it on paper, because there's a lot of info in there that I'm not internalizing listening to the audiobook. I need to read it and highlight parts of it. So I'm mentioning this again right now because as Scott sat there and he said that he's not familiar with social media, I began to think about that book. The reason why is because the book is basically telling us we're living through a shift in a generational shift in leadership of the world. And basically, the older generation is giving way to the younger generation. And when Scott said that, I thought to myself, how could you not be familiar with social media at this point when the vast majority of your membership are now of the age where they grew up with social media? They use social media every day. They use their smartphone every day. So you have to know it. So again, I'm recommending that book to you, chat, because what we're living through is what's talked about in that book. It's a generational shift in leadership. And I'm pretty certain that in the coming years, the world is going to look different because the people that are going to be in charge of it aren't going to be the old heads anymore. So thanks for having me on again, guys. And I'll see you, chat, Friday when we do the weekly roundup.
That's a great point, Marlon. I think you're spot on. I think that's also a key element to leadership is know yourself and seek self-improvement, right? So you have to know your capabilities and your limitations so that you can strive to get better and better each day so that you could actually lead your membership or lead your organization, right? How can you be in a position of leadership as your people are evolving, as you're passing the torch and the generations change over? You have to have the knowledge to continue on to lead them. You're absolutely right. You're spot on. So here we are, 2 hours and 5 minutes into it. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Check out Sal Greco, 1205. Wednesday, again, your executive perspective. I think it's a nice twist, nice spin to everything. We're really building up here. Thank you so much, everybody. John, close us out. Have a good night and or good day. And thank you, Jack, for what you do behind the scenes. We appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll be back at you live 8:05. Me and Eric will be bringing you breaking down some of the news, all the stuff that's going on in the Eric Adams administration and the politics in New York City, as well as whatever necessary moves are now going to happen as a result of that in the New York City Police Department. So we'll be doing that tomorrow, another town hall about that. So appreciate all you guys for being on here and joining us. On Wednesday, prior to the executive perspective, we're gonna have an attorney from LA out here, former sheriff's deputy. There was a sheriff's deputy across the country right now who responded to what's a 1030 over there? What's a robbery in progress there?
It's a 230N or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It's a different call, but basically this deputy responded. 211. There you go. That's the one. So he responds to it. And for us in New York City, that's a 1030. That's a robbery in progress. So he responds to a robbery in progress. Perpetrator's there, goes to effect an arrest. She resists arrest. He pepper sprays the defendant while she's resisting arrest. He has probable cause. He pepper sprays her while that fight's going on. He basically got thrown under the bus by the sheriff of LA County Sheriff's Sheriff's deputy, excuse me, and LA County Sheriff's Office and LA County Sheriff. He got thrown under the bus and he just got found guilty of a civil rights violation for using pepper spray against a resisting perpetrator who he had probable cause on. And I think it's going to send shock waves through law enforcement. So it's important that we know about all of that, East Coast, West Coast, and we're going to blend that together. So Wednesday, we're going to have his attorney come on to speak about that, to speak about the lasting impact. And again, his attorney is a former sheriff himself. So he's very familiar in the law enforcement podcast. So that they're waving the flag about this to the law enforcement community. So on Wednesday, they'll be on joining us. And then obviously, we're going to continue to bring you a lot more retired members of the NYPD and hear their stories. So yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Live 8:05. We'll be back at you tomorrow. Find us on Unfiltered, baby.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.